Welcome to Better Build Back Better. I'm County Executive Stuart Pittman, and I've got with me two guests who don't feel like guests because I work with them every day. We are interviewing what we're calling the new bosses, which are the two top positions in county government, staff positions other than myself, of course, and that's the Chief of Staff and the Chief Administrative Officer. And so this is a little bit different from most of the town halls that we do. But I have a very strong feeling that it's important to have government be open, the workings of government be open to people so that they can really get a sense of what goes on in my office, how decisions are made, and who the people are that are making the decisions. And maybe a little bit about what drives those people. And that's what I'm hoping we uncover tonight, is what's behind our new Chief of Staff and our new Chief Administrative Officer. So I have with me Dr. Kay Bodgester-Brown and Matt Power. Congratulations on your new jobs, both of you.
Thank you.
They've been in for, I guess, 3 weeks now. Both were promoted just recently from Deputy Chief Administrative Officer positions. Dr. Kay was Health and Human Services, and Matt was Land Use. And what we found during the this pandemic is everybody's job changes when there's a crisis. And during this pandemic, everybody was moved out of the office, working from home. And we were given some federal money to be able to do some new things with. And we had to address needs that didn't exist before or that weren't nearly as urgent. And a lot of those were health and human service needs. We found ourselves having to figure out how to do food distribution systems and rental assistance, eviction prevention, and all of our health and human service agencies were working overtime. And of course, the health department itself. And for a brief time, Dr. Kay was actually stepped into the position of overseeing the whole pandemic response. Then Dr. Kay went out for back surgery for a very short time, and we had to pull in somebody else to oversee all of that. And we pulled in Matt Power from Land Use, and then we kept it that way for a while. And then what ended up happening is that the two started working as a team, and they worked really well as a team. At the same time, the whole operation was going really well. I think when you look at Anne Arundel County, look at what we did during the pandemic and since, we really, I think we shine. We've done very well. I feel very proud of the work that we did. And Ben Burge kept the government running while we also had this other part of government addressing the pandemic. And as we came out of sort of the most urgent time of that, we actually brought somebody in to look at how things had changed in our office among the leadership and how we could maximize what we do and continue to operate at this really high level of efficiency that we had started to operate under because we had to. And we had a request from our Chief of Staff for quite some time to move into a different position to do special projects. Dr. Jennifer Purcell, may best be known for her service in the county on some projects that she did from the very beginning when she put together our transition team to the gun violence prevention task force that she oversaw, and always felt like her best work was done on projects where you give her a problem and you say, figure out how to engage the public, come out with a plan so that we can move forward, and you move on to the next one. She made a request that she step out of the Chief of Staff position and move into that. So you will see Dr. Purcell working on a lot of education issues, moving forward on the opportunity gap work with the school board administration, doing work on the census, which we really need to up our game and get our census forms filled out in Anne Arundel County. And then on the CAO side, the Chief Administrative Officer, which is the job that oversees the various departments of government and keeps the trains running and makes sure that things are efficient. Ben Burge and I had a lot of conversations about economic development. He had, in 18 months, he really took Anne Arundel County government and put processes in place, put these two people in place, in fact, and made huge strides in a short amount of time. And we talked about building back out of this pandemic and what needs to happen in the economy, how businesses are going to get back running, how we make sure that there's childcare, how we make sure that people get back to work. And Ben had a lot of big ideas, and Ben was working with economic development on some of this. And he and I looked at each other, and it just kind of like a light bulb went off. Ben, you're the person who should be doing that. So Ben is now fixing the economy, no small task, and is over at economic development. So then we had to figure out, okay, who was going to fill these two key positions? And Dr. K and Matt had both proven themselves. They've been, I like to say, they've been stress tested, and to me, they're everything. I mean, I don't want to make your heads too big as we start, because we did decide that this was going to be like a hazing, and I was going to really ask them tough questions. But I'm going to start out, guys, with the nice stuff. And both of them are people. I would say. I mean, really, running government is managing an organization of people, and to get the maximum productivity and to serve the public well, the people in government have to feel good about their work. They have to be happy, and there has to be a sense that there's a mission that we're all part of. And to me, that mission is all about people. People are the foundation of the economy. It's all about health and public health and people. It's about our environment. It's about the way we use our land. It's a lot of things, but I feel like these two people really get it. These two people really understand how to manage people and create and build an organization. So welcome, Matt and Kay.
Thank you very much.
So because we want to get to know you before we completely haze you, I'm going to ask you each to just tell us who you are and how you ended up here. Start with where you were born and finish with recent jobs. Anything in between you want to share, and just give us a little bio. Why don't we start with you, Kay, since you're the brave one?
Wow. So I'll start back. I actually was born in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is kind of a strange, unique thing about me. I lived there for about 4 years, and then my parents moved back to Colorado, and I grew up in Aurora and Castle Rock. So that's where I spent my formative years. I went to school at the local state college there, Metropolitan State College of Denver, and then I went to Regis University, which is a Jesuit school. I studied counseling psychology, and my dream was to be a therapist. And I went through the entire program, and at the very end said, I don't want to be a therapist. I like people, but I don't want to do that. So that was a little bit of a crisis.
You don't like them that much, huh?
No. I love therapists, but yeah, that was a little bit of a crisis in my life. I had moved out to Virginia, so I was living out here at the time. I had started my residency, and I just said I need to go a different path. So I ended up with a technology firm, which I spent several years with them, moving from just managing projects to moving up to handle their HR processes, helping them really put some operational things in place. It was a small business, so there was many hats that I could wear, and really pushed the envelope in helping them get organized. And they allowed me pretty much every opportunity that I wanted to take on. So it was a great learning ground. After that, I moved to a child placement agency, which is basically on the private side, working with foster care youth. And that was a great experience. And that's where I ended up going back to my roots, which were human services. I previously was a case manager in my early professional years. And so that was going back, even though I was an administrator, I really love human services. That's where my heart is. And I did that for several years. And then I ended up with the Prince George's County Department of Social Services, where I think I was really shaped into the professional that I am today, under the direction of my former director, Gloria Brown Burnett. Really helped me become the executive material. Working at a Department of Social Services is no easy job. I stood up a Division of Quality Assurance and Compliance that wasn't funded. So I begged, borrowed, and stole funding so that we could do the work of telling the government story. So we took all the data that sat in a variety of different locations and compiled it, shaped it into useful information, and did that on a monthly basis. And by the time I left, I had a staff of about 30 people. And we did data reports, we handled customer complaints, we did anything that had to do with audits, accountability, and the whole 9 yards. And we were very progressive in our work, and I had an awesome team. And it shaped me, it helped me understand the entire operation of social services and then the larger human service profile in Prince George's. So that was my history. I ended up in Anne Arundel County because Ben Burge convinced me it was a great place to work, actually the best place. For all, absolutely. And I came out here to do the DCAO position, which was another new position that had been a model previous, but this was an opportunity to jump in and design something that was in somebody's mind. And between myself and the administration and the directors, the Health and Human Service directors, we did a great job putting something in place, and it's been awesome. So.
And I got to say, I was a little worried for you on your behalf when you came in, because the position had sort of existed under a previous administration and then been cut, but the position didn't exist when you came in. And we have Health and Human Service agencies and their directors who had sort of figured out how to operate under the radar and work with each other. And here we were bringing in somebody who was going to work out of our office and say, no, we actually have a mission. We care what the outcome is with all of your agencies, and we really want to create a better safety net in this county, and we want to serve vulnerable populations, and we need to coordinate our efforts. And throwing you in there as a newcomer, I was worried that they wouldn't accept you and they would chew you up and spit you out, because they had been around a while and they knew their stuff. They're a strong group. So how did you manage that?
I mean, that's a real concern. I remember my first meeting sitting in a room with professionals who've been doing this for 30 years. And I was like, whoa, boy. So, you know what? I went into it. I hope that I went into it as a partner with them. And my approach was to say, hey, I want to help us tell our stories. I want to lift up the things that are challenging for you and help you remove barriers. And I think that that's any leader's job, is to help people push their agendas forward so that we can do the work that we need to do. And, as you like to say, cut the red tape, get rid of the bureaucracy, move stuff so that, the ultimate goal is to serve the residents and make sure that they have quality services that they need, adequate services, and then access to all of those. And I will say that probably the first couple of meetings where, you're getting to know someone, it's kind of like going on a date. You're like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do? How are you going to react? But, they were great. They brought me in, they welcomed me, and we really developed some great relationships. I think it would be terrible not to mention that as much as I may have helped them, they literally helped me. They shaped me and have contributed to my growth as a professional and as a leader. And I've learned a tremendous amount from them. And I couldn't ask for a better HHS team.
Well, you certainly all went through a lot in the last 6 months, and came out stronger. All right, let me jump over to Matt. So tell us your story, Matt.
All right, real quickly.
And don't leave out the bartending part.
Well, that's probably arguably my greatest skill set, so I won't leave that out. But so I was born and raised in Prince George's County. I attended high school at Eleanor Roosevelt as well as Gonzaga in Washington, D.C. Moved away for a while to go to college and got my history degree in Chicago, Loyola in Chicago. And then came back here and had my history degree and immediately started bartending at the Ramshead Tavern in Annapolis, just 2 blocks here. My entire career is in about a couple blocks of itself down in Annapolis, whatever job it might have been. So as I was bartending there, I went back to school and I got a master's in public management with a specialization in environmental policy. And soon thereafter, after more bartending, I started working at the Department of Legislative Services down in Annapolis. This is also 2 blocks the other way from here. I spent a couple years there doing oversight for the General Assembly and the budget committees. I continued bartending while I was there for quite a while because it was the pay was not what it is. And so then I had done so much environmental policy work that I really wanted to work in the executive branch. And I chose to take a position with the Maryland Department of Planning at the end of the Glendenning administration because he was promoting smart growth. He was promoting all the things that I had studied in school and wanted to be a part of. And so I decided I was no longer going to do budgets and I would be working on smart growth issues. And as I was there, we had some budget crises and a new secretary offered me a promotion and be deputy director of administration to help her solve that budget crisis and come down to Annapolis and work through the General Assembly's budget process, which I was familiar with from before. And I did deputy director of administration for quite a few years and then became director of administration there. It was a great organization with a lot of talented people, a lot of smart people, a lot of committed people, advocates for the state of Maryland and for protecting our natural resources and getting a better transportation infrastructure and network going. And then after being there for a while, I was trying to decide where to go, and I decided to go back to school and get my MBA. So I got my MBA at Loyola. I could have gotten both degrees in 3 years when I was 23, and I decided 3 years was way too much. So then I went back and did a 2-year MBA, full-time for school and full-time for work. And the Secretary Scott, who was the secretary at the time, was very understanding and wanted to see me gain the skill sets that I wanted and gave me the opportunity to sort of blend those worlds. And I thought I was going to be heading out of there very soon thereafter. And then the O'Malley administration came in and I became the deputy secretary of the Department of Planning, was there for 6 years doing that. And then in the last few years of the O'Malley administration, I ran the state debt program, where we, one of the greatest jobs and most interesting jobs I've ever had, where we were measuring the performance of every state agency and all of the governor's goals to try and move the needle on the things of importance to the citizens of the state and putting all of the black marks out there that we weren't doing as well as we'd like to and making that very transparent and open. We did a lot of work on open data, and I had a team of 8 great analysts who were just phenomenally curious, smart people. And then I took a hiatus and went to higher education for about 5 years and did government relations there. And then I had moved to Anne Arundel County in the interim, and Burge had reached out to me and asked if I was willing to have a conversation. And that led to a conversation with the county executive. And he was the first person I'd heard talk about smart growth in an awful long time. And the deputy chief administrative officer position was just one that was a great fit for me. And I was just excited to join a committed, passionate team that wanted to accomplish great things for the county.
That's quite a resume. I'm not sure I even read your resume because I was so impressed by it.
You hired me, Stuart.
I know, I did. I took a class, but no, I had, the part that really got me was the work that you did in the last part of the O'Malley administration, where he's known for, he wrote the book, literally, it just came out, on smart government, on using data and managing with data and performance outcomes based on data. and some people say maybe he even went too far with that. You can't go too far, but he was the master of it, no question about it. And the fact that you were the person who was implementing that for the last couple of years for all the state agencies suggested to me that you know something about how government operates and when
and how
things
it
are
doesn't
working,
in certain other instances.
and then when it doesn't. Yeah. And so Anne Arundel County government, I came in and there had been a number of administrations that I think their goal was as much their stated campaign goals were to shrink government. The government was in the way a lot in a lot of things. And you could sort of feel it when you came in, sometimes with staff morale, where people didn't feel as valued, and sometimes with systems that just, they hadn't really been, it's like government hadn't been nurtured very well. And so I guess a question maybe for you first, Matt, is to describe your management style. So I know you have a vision of what you want government to do, but you've got to deal with the people. So how do you deal with people when you're?
Sure. I think mine is really goal-oriented collaboration, setting clear goals that people can use their own talents to accomplish and collaborate together. I don't believe in a strong top-down form of management. I think if you can set clear goals, identify what they are, get the whole team on board with them, and hire the right people and get the talent in place, you're able to accomplish those goals together. Because being a taskmaster of individual things or someone's daily schedule is just not an inspiring work environment. It isn't what creates creativity or intellectual exploration or even breakthroughs in how to fix problems. You have to have not just the people at the top giving ideas and saying this is the way to do it. You have to say this is the outcome that we want to achieve and where we want to get to. And then let a lot of great minds, a lot of diverse minds come together and figure out the best ways forward and give them the latitude to get there.
I gotta say that one of the most impressive things that I've seen you do was when we decided to create a recovery work group, where each week the governor was announcing reopenings, and our health department we were consulting with them to figure out whether we should go all the way with what the governor was proposing or whether we should do part of it, whether Anne Arundel County was ready based on our metrics, as all the counties were having to do. And it became very, very controversial. And we would have like 24 hours to make a decision and then implement it based on those Wednesday press conferences. So we pulled this group together that we knew people weren't going to agree with each other. We had the two hospitals, we had the health officer, we had organized labor represented, we still have this, we had clergy represented, we had the head of the Economic Development Corporation, who is one of the larger commercial real estate operators in the county, and we had a representative of our chambers of commerce, and then a Democrat and a Republican on the county council, and so you brought this group together, and we would have 24 hours to make our decision, and we wanted a sounding board. And I remember that first meeting and how you managed it. And after that first meeting, one of the representatives on it, who had been on lots and lots and lots of task forces and committees, emailed and said, this is the most efficient, effective task force that I have ever sat on. It really was. I mean, because you somehow managed to get everybody heard, but end the meeting in 60 minutes. So thank you for that. Yeah, and we've heard a little bit of Kay's story on how she manages people coming in when she came into a group of people that she was asked to manage who weren't used to being managed. But bringing you in as chief of staff, Kay, is the chief of staff position is to oversee my office's staff, but in your case, we brought a little bit more with it, right? We wanted you to continue to oversee those health and human service agencies while bringing in the deputy to be able to make things happen. But um, what is this job of chief of staff? How do you see it, Kay?
Ooh, that's a big question. I think that that was the first thing that I really went to work on and said, really, what does a chief of staff do? Because to manage the office is one part of it, right? And so I started having some conversations, and my good buddy Matt helped me by connecting me with some individuals to just really talk about what their chiefs of staff did for them and what worked and what didn't work. So I had a couple of different models that were, explained to me, and I kind of grappled with them, and then you and I started talking, on a more regular basis, and I could kind of get a sense on, what things you liked, what type of support you really needed. So I look at it as really helping to make sure that the processes of the office and the operations are smooth. One of the things I just want to kind of give a shout out to Jen Purcell and Ben Burge, because literally walking in, Matt and I have like the best foundation anyone could ever ask for in the middle of a pandemic, right? Because not only are we doing these jobs, we're coming in and our staff are, working, in different places. Some are in the office. So there's that dynamic too. So, it's making sure that we're running effectively, making sure that, the operations are happening, people are doing what they need to do, but then also making sure that you have what you need to be able to do the daily things that you do as county executive, that you're prepared for meetings, you have briefing docs, agendas. And so it's been a learning curve. I will say that in some instances, I thought back to my job at DSS and I thought, well, actually, it's very similar to being a number two, where you're always doing the work to prepare your boss.
Somebody else gets all the credit, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the job, right? You go and you make sure that everything is working and that you have what you need to go out and represent the county and deal with the county's issues. And whatever your agenda is, I should be taking that and working to make sure that that is accomplished.
Hey, so, the answer we were looking for was that you're going to be the boss's boss.
Well, it is sort of.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think that Ben
somebody to hold me accountable in a way.
And Ben used to tell me on a regular that I manage up really well. So I think that, we're figuring out, how that works. And I think that we are, we're finding our way. And I feel like partners you can hold each other accountable, because I think it goes in multiple ways. So while I'm happy to be the boss's boss, I also know that, you're holding me accountable. I'm holding Matt accountable. He's holding me accountable. There's this really, really nice synergy in making sure that all of our bases are covered so that we're all able to achieve what we came here to do. And that is to make government better and serve our residents.
But I have to say that, in addition to all of that, and this is really for both of you, but I'm saying it to you, Dr. K, okay. Is that you also will be in meetings. I tend to really know what I want the outcome to be. Like, we got to get this done. This is important. And sometimes I have, my political instincts. I think that way. I think, okay, this group of people feels this way and this group of people feels that way. And I think I understand where they're coming from, and let's listen to them and all of that. And I know where we want to get, but don't always know how to get there. And then there's this silence. And then Kay speaks up. How about, here's how we're going to set this up. Here's step A, B, C, D. And we all kind of take us, breathe a big sigh of relief. It's like, okay, we have a plan now. Right. And so that's more than just kind of holding me accountable. But Matt, I mean, that's everybody's job, I think, in government, who makes things happen well. And, you guys have both talked about how, we need people who can lead projects. There's so much that we want to get done, and we only have so many people, and people who can actually make a plan and make it happen are incredibly valuable. And We can't all be the county executive. I'm not sure we want to be, but
you can keep that one.
Yeah, I know. I understand a lot of people who want that one, but no, I love my job too. Because I love the listening to people and trying to figure out where they're coming from and what makes them tick. And at the end of the day, everybody, for the most part, wants the same thing. They want everybody to be healthy and happy and able to move forward and lead good lives. They just have different ideas about how to get there, and that's where all the politics comes in. But having people who can really sort of just set up the processes to get there is key. So what about Anne Arundel County? I mean, both of you have worked elsewhere or at a larger, I guess you've been here for a long time in terms of Annapolis, Matt, but worked at the state level and seen the whole state. And Kay, you've worked in Prince George's County and been around the country a bit. What can you describe the people of Anne Arundel County? And I know they don't all fit into one basket, but the electorate, the people who we govern, who we're trying to serve. Who wants to go first?
I'll give it a first shot because mine will be very different than Kay's. I mean, I think what makes this county fascinating, the people within it, is it's a very geographic county, right? So the land use side is always going to come out. There's no other place to govern. It's not a square where you can sort of just divvy up. We've got the state capital within our county. We have one municipality. We have so much shoreline. We have so many peninsulas. We have two main road networks. And as a result, you find these pockets of communities all throughout the county that are as urban as any other big 8 county, that are as rural as any other big 8 county. And so you've got a really diverse group of people and stakeholders with very different interests if you just travel 30 minutes one way or the other. And what I've found so far is just a tremendous amount of commitment about their local neighborhoods and their local communities and their desire to either see positive change there or in other instances to see not a lot more change there. And I think you really see everyone's passion for their communities, and sometimes it's countywide, but I think more than some other counties, it's very specific to the geography that everyone is living in, and the districts are created that way. And I think you see that in the budget town halls, that the priorities that are raised are phenomenally different in the different parts of the county. But most importantly, there's a really engaged citizenry with opinions across the political spectrum that are helpful to getting us to better solutions and answers.
It's amazing how much like America we are, demographically and in terms of our diversity, and we have it all here. And politically, like America, we're kind of split down the middle, and so we have the same issues. It's a fascinating place. Maybe we'll figure it all out here. What about you, Kay? How do you see the people of this county?
So it's interesting coming into a different county and having to kind of learn from the ground up, the different players and different communities. I have been welcomed by all of the residents in any of the events that I've gone to, and people that I've talked to have been very open and had open arms and, wanted to share their thoughts and their ideas with me. And even though we may not always agree on, how to get there, they've always been very, respectful and making requests of things to consider. And I think that that's one thing that really stands out to me pre-COVID is that, when I was able to be in the community and really talk to people, they had diverse thoughts. There was diversity and just in general from their backgrounds, but they would all, they all came from that place of we want things to be better. I do think that Health and Human Services is a little slanted because we're all, warm, fuzzy people that, kind of other people who do those types of events are warm, fuzzy people, and we kind of have similar thinking on that. But in the budget town halls, I ran into the same type of people who really had, that maybe weren't HHS, did the HHS events, but really came out and wanted to talk about this particular issue or this problem that they had. And the common thread was, we want to make things better. I have some thoughts on what that might look like. Can you help me? Can you listen to me? And can you just give this some thought? And I think that, I've also been in situations where there are town halls where it hasn't been very pleasant in other places, not here. It's very uncomfortable. So here, everyone was so kind and just asked me to consider things. And so I thought that was really, very nice, a nice way of engaging and really bringing thoughtful ideas to the table.
So we're polite, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mostly.
I would say engaged. I would say passionate. I would say, people really have strong feelings about how they, what they might think or believe about a particular topic, but polite and really wanting to be a part of a solution. And
How about the work?
I'll also just add, that my thought process is that my ideas are probably good, but our ideas are probably much better. And that when we have, differing points of view, even if they're on different sides of the table, political spectrum, whatever it is, you can usually come to some place in the middle where everyone is able to find a common thread that we can agree on to move the work forward. And that's what I really see coming out in the people I've interacted with in Anne Arundel County.
How about the workforce, Matt? The county employees, are they just like everywhere else, or any impressions?
No, I mean, I've been really impressed with the county workforce, incredibly committed. I'm also, quite frankly, I feel for them. I mean, I think this is a county that is a big 8 county that might not have invested in just basic modernization of processes and information technology. It was striking. I was coming from the state for the most part, which you don't think of as the most forward-leaning organization, and the lack of IT infrastructure in certain respects was particularly striking. And I think people expect different. And I think the workers are committed, passionate, highly educated, and wanting to do a phenomenal job. And I think sometimes some of the built-in components of Anne Arundel County government, having been a smaller county and a smaller government, and so much focus on that, has created some obstacles to them getting the work done efficiently and effectively. And so I feel for them on that front and hope that we can make some change and difference to streamline some of our processes and get it to a place where they're able to make their jobs more effective and their time in their jobs more valuable.
What about you, Kay? Any thoughts about the county workforce?
I echo what Matt said. I think that we've got an incredible workforce that are very committed. I will say through COVID, I mean, people just picked up and they did jobs that looked completely different than what they were doing the day before and didn't complain, asked if they could do more. How can I help? They were on board with their directors, asking, if I can't do this, how can I do something else that's going to be helpful? There's a myth that government workers are not very good workers. It's so far from the truth that our people are very committed to the people that they serve, and they're very concerned about whether or not we're able to provide services to our residents in a way that's going to be convenient for them and helpful to them. And they stayed true to that through COVID and our response and our recovery, and continue to do so. So I'm proud of them, and I'm not surprised. On the HHS side, we always people talk about not necessarily needing to provide the type of funding that it really does need to help families and individuals who really need it, the most vulnerable of our populations. But anytime something happens in our communities, the HHS departments and their staffs are front and center in responding, whether it's COVID this time, if it's a fire, if it's a hurricane and we have damage and flooding. the HHS folks are just as important as, you know, we always think of police, fire, EMS as our first responders. And our HHS staff are front and center doing the caring and needs that people need during times of need. So I'm impressed, but I'm not surprised. They're great people.
Yeah, I have to echo that too, because I came from outside government completely, and 18 months ago. And, you know, I had a little bit of that sense that government's not the most efficient organization in the world, and I mean, I think it's true. And I've watched both of you make it more efficient. And I think that's one thing that all three of us are all about. But the people really, have really smart people who really know their jobs and have been at their jobs for a very long time. Most of whom like try to separate out the politics and just do their jobs. I mean, I know they have opinions, but they do their jobs regardless of what the politics say. And they just really, I mean, they're committed in ways, which I think is one reason people do stick around, is they're committed in ways that people who work in the private sector sometimes are not. So they have more of that mission focus of serving the public, and that compensates maybe for some of the inefficiencies, because people really do work hard and care. So it's been impressive for me to see. So I told you I was going to ask you to pick 3 things that you would like to accomplish. But I also told you I wasn't going to tell you the question. So I'm going to switch it up on you just a little bit. What's the thing you'd like to accomplish most in this job?
Oh, mine is definitely what I just said before, modernizing the bureaucracy to make it more flexible and the business processes easier, and to be able to collaborate with the private sector for some public-private partnerships. We're farther behind than our other county peers, and there's some low-hanging fruit there that we can streamline processes and turn things around faster. The notion that we are routing hard copies, you know, through 5 and 6 and 7 different departments for signatures is just, we can do better.
Can you give us an example without throwing anybody under the bus? An example that was maybe related to the pandemic, where we all had to move fast. We all had to get something done quick, and government wasn't designed to do something quick. And how you had to
Sure.
overcome that.
Yeah, I think, you know, we one of the things is the appropriations process and the ability to even bring money into the budget from the federal government. We realized, you know, things are moving so quickly and the needs are changing so fast that we needed a more nimble financial vehicle to access the funds that the federal government was going to be providing us. So we worked in partnership with the county council and established the COVID-19 relief fund. And when we first started talking about that, it wasn't necessarily universally embraced as a great thing to do from some folks that have been working in the county for a long time, because that's not the way it had been done. And I think our point was sort of, you're right, it's not the way it's been done, but we're looking for a faster, more nimble vehicle so that we can respond to a pandemic that was rapidly evolving and changing week after week after week. And we knew we wouldn't be able to introduce something and then have 2 weeks to wait for the council to go through it and then finally get it done and then be able to move the money to where it needed to be moved. And it could take months. And so, you know, hats off to the council and the administration for working together and figuring out a way that we could nimbly and flexibly respond to put the needs to some of the most vulnerable populations and the people in greatest need. When, you know, you look back now and things are a lot different than they were in March, when it was completely unknown what the next thing, what the next shoe to drop was going to be, or which population was going to be the most vulnerable, and how we would be able to respond. And so putting some of those flexible support structures in place allowed all of our employees to do a better job and respond more quickly and know that the resources were there for them to be able to do so.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot from that too.
Yeah.
It got us to do things differently that we can continue to do differently. Yeah, good. What about you, Kay? What would you want to accomplish?
So to be a little bit different than Matt's perspective, because I think that's a critically important piece for government, I would also say preparing our staff. So modernizing our staff and preparing them for the future of the workforce. Because government is behind and we have a lot of paper processes and we, don't have systems that look and work like our banking systems that you just go online and press a button and you get a report. There's a lot of work that has to be done. Our jobs are changing. And so I think that, talking a lot about making sure that they get the training and support and development so that they can do their jobs to work in a more electronic world, to be able to do Zoom meetings, to be able to look at the needs of their constituents and the individuals that they serve and be able to, dig in and analyze data so that they understand those needs and are able to advocate for needs and funding in a way that aligns with what we see in the data, because that, it changes, and how better to be able to serve people than to understand, and assess what their needs are in a way that aligns with the larger community, and then being able to advocate for it. So I really want to see staff, grow and become more modernized along with the processes that we put into place.
Okay, I got a question here that was emailed in from somebody named William. I don't know what his last name is, or if he's even really William, but that's the
Are
name.
you making this up, boss?
No, this is real. This is real. No, we asked people to email questions, and we may get some more on Facebook Live. So the question is, how do you feel the county can have a positive dialogue about race that allows all races to be heard without fear? Until all sides can speak openly and say what is on their hearts and minds without fear of condemnation, there will be no real progress. How do you plan to foster that safe space and openness for all sides to talk? And feel free to expand in your answer into, to take it any direction you want. Who wants to go first?
You want me to go? All right. Having these dialogues is critically important. I just want to start there. I'm biracial. My mom is white. My dad is African American. And I was raised in both of my cultures and heard and experienced a lot of things that were very interesting. But one of the things I was raised with is that you have to be able to talk through these issues and these challenges, and that my parents raised me and told me that in the world, this is what you're going to go forth and do. You're going to educate people, and you're going to create safe spaces to have these conversations. So that's kind of interesting that we are dealing with this now. I guess they saw the future that I didn't. We have to be able to educate one another and create opportunities for people of different backgrounds to safely come together and talk about things that they may not have had any type of experience in. And some of that is some of the work that we're doing now is looking at how we have healthy dialogues for our staff and how we do that in the communities, how we really explore how history has not necessarily been reflected in a way that represents everyone's history. And we do it in bits and pieces, but by doing that, you create opportunities for people to be able to understand other people's perspectives. So there's different ways through education and training that we can set up where we have people who are trained in this. That's their expertise to facilitate a conversation. We as communities have to bring our neighbors and our friends and our family members along so that we can all participate in a dialogue without understanding it's going to be emotional, understanding we're going to hear things we may not like, but it's okay because we have to work through the process. And if we don't, we will just continue what we have now. And I believe that if you keep doing the same things, you're going to get what you always got. So that's a little bit about where my thoughts on that.
Maybe and I'll just sort of.
I know you have more, but
I'll give Matt a turn.
Well, we're working on it. Yeah.
I'd add on the case. thoughts that I think one of the ways that we've been working hard as an administration to do that is by doing that work ourselves. I've been here 6 months in 2 days, and in the last 6 months, I think I've had more truly open and honest conversations about race with the coworkers I have here than I have had any other place. And that's because there's been a strong focus from the county executive and the former chief of staff, former CAO and others to make sure that we're able to have those hard, difficult, sensitive conversations with ourselves uh, inside the county exec's office and throughout government. Because if we're not able to do it there, we're not able to create those safe spaces when we go out in the community and make sure that everyone, whether you're someone who's not as diverse like myself, or you're someone else in the community, that we are all have valuable opinions to offer and that we can hear one another and listen to one another. And I think this administration has done a lot of work to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position where we're able to do that.
Yeah, and I don't think I would have brought you both of you in had you not had thoughtful answers like that, because um, even before the George Floyd murder and the marches that have been all over our county and all over the country, um, we in this county had responded to the hate bias incident report that showed our county top the state, with our new Human Relations Commission doing that event back in February, and a lot of other work that we've been doing to try to tell the history of the African American experience in this county. But then that event in February was going to be followed by these conversations throughout our communities that were guided, and then COVID came and we couldn't do them in person. And even the Human Relations Commission itself wasn't meeting for some time period and is now back in full force. So we have a lot of work to do, and but we're well situated to do it. I think partly because you all and our whole staff are committed to it, but also we have leaders in this community who are really smart about this stuff and know how to tell history and have been working on these issues for a long time and are feeling optimistic that people are paying attention now. People are interested. Young people are interested. So looking forward to all of that. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We are going to have to wrap it up in just a few minutes. We have a few other questions here. Most of them are very specific. I just want to ask, I'm going to throw one out here, and this is maybe more for you, Matt, because you're Mr. Land Use than Kay, although you may have something to say. When are you going to wrap up the general development plan? The challenges are many now with the lockdowns, Amy. And if you have anything else you want to say about the general development plan, Matt, being Mr. Planning from the state of Maryland, throw it out there.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think there's a good process in place. We did take a little hiccup as a result of COVID and figuring out, could we really do things virtually? It's one thing to have staff meetings and other types of even smaller community meetings virtually, but so many of us in the planning world are used to these bigger charrettes where you're laying down maps and you're outlining scenarios and you're talking through issues around a big table. And I give a lot of credit to our staff at Planning and Zoning for figuring out creative ways to engage the community and engage the CAC and make sure that that process continues to get underway. And I think there's going to be drafts coming out in the early fall that will give people opportunities to respond. And we lost a little bit of time, but I think we're also getting back on track. And this is a foundation for everything. This is why you do it, is to my points earlier, is you do it to help make a better future for your community and decide what kind of community you want. Are you the part of the county that wants to grow really fast and have a denser development and workforce housing? Or are you a different part of the county that you're going to be more focused on natural resources, land preservation, protection? And that's why after we go through the general development process, we'll have the regional plans, because we are a county of regions. And so I think the process has been done in a very thoughtful way. I think all of us look forward to a time, especially people like me, where we can get around the table and talk about maps and have that more person-to-person interaction that I think does get lost a little bit on a Zoom call with, 40, 50, 60 people. But I think we've done a great job getting through the other side of some of the toughest parts of the pandemic, and hopefully we stay on this other side. And the good work is being done, and the analysis is getting done, and our staff have had some time to focus on it as well. So I think we're not far behind, and we're getting
okay. Yeah, and it's for anybody out there who pays attention to land use, which everybody should in this county. I mean, I don't think there was anything bigger in the election that put me in office than this sense that Anne Arundel County had not managed its growth, that we had let it run rampant and developers did whatever they wanted to do, and politicians kind of went along with that, and that the plans we had in place weren't followed. So having a CAO overseeing departments of government who is one of the preeminent planning people in the state of Maryland, understands the importance of a plan, land use plan, is really good for us. But the other part of what made me want to be county executive is I had a really strong feeling in this county and in this country that the people, at least over the last 40 years, maybe the last 400 years, the people at the bottom always get screwed. Excuse my French, but that the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. It happens over and over and over again. And this pandemic has made it worse. The people who are being hurt most by this pandemic are low-wage workers, low-income people, period. And they keep on doing tax breaks for the people at the top. And so, Kay, can you help us fix it? We got to do something. I mean, you've seen it. You've come into this county. Everybody thought, okay, this is a pretty wealthy county. And then we have this report, poverty amidst plenty. And here you are working with keeping homeless people from being out on the streets during the pandemic, figuring out what to do about our homeless population. You're seeing people who are threatened with homelessness, and you're working with all the agencies. Are we going to be able to help?
Yeah. So, I will say that there's a lot that can keep you up at night, and the health and the safety of our most vulnerable and the families who probably weren't vulnerable before, but will be now. It really does keep me up at night. And so what I will say is we are fully committed to making sure that we have services in place for those who need it. We've got our eviction prevention programs that we have, because if we can make sure people stay in their homes and are able to pay their rents and their mortgages, that's the best idea, because then you don't have to deal with individuals who are unsheltered and end up homeless. But we also have services in place for individuals who are unsheltered and who have lost somewhere to live. One of the things that we're doing is really taking a hard look at what we're going to be able to do when the moratoriums on, evictions are lifted, because we're very concerned about that. So eviction prevention is one tool. We're looking at funding legal support and also tenant landlord mediation so that individuals can make these payment plans. I think it's in everyone's best interest if people stay in their homes. Landlords have people who live there and want to pay their rent as soon as they can get back to work. That's ideal. But if that doesn't play out and we have to, help people if it becomes too unstable for them, we have really worked hard to look at our shelter system to make sure that we're able to do physical distancing, but also understand that we have lost beds, but we're trying to make sure that we have services in place so that we are able to help individuals. And we're committed to doing that. We've got services so that we can accommodate the beds that were lost, plus a few more if we need that. And we're wrapping services around individuals so that they're able to, create a plan and implement it so that they can, move on to self-sufficiency and independence. On the mental health side, we're doing work to make sure that our crisis intervention, our crisis response folks have the support that they need, and that we're able to respond to individuals who really need that type of support. And we expect that, with crisis, which the pandemic and this economic fallout has caused, you're going to see, that tip up, go up. We're going to see more of that. And so we're putting resources in place so that, we have the counselors and supports in place to respond to that. Additionally, we're looking at beds on the crisis side to make sure that we're moving people on. So there's a myriad of strategies that we're employing to make sure that we're working within our existing resources, adding some supports so that we can move people on, but keep people safe and keep them off the street and keep them in safe environments. We learned early on with our temporary shelter that individuals who might not have had, might not be well enough on their own to be in a hotel room on their own. So we needed to make another plan for them so that we could have some additional supports. And so we put that in place as well. So we've got crisis beds that they're kind of crisis light. So there's a number of programs. Our food access line, if people are interested or need help.
222 food, right?
It's 410-222 food. You can call and you will be able to speak with someone who will assess you and then align services for you with the program that you qualify for. So we know we have some programs for seniors and we have, people who may not qualify for that, but we have other resources available. We've worked with our food banks. I mean, anything that's been a problem that's come our way, we've tackled it. We've created work groups to be able to pull all of the resources together and help to do it in a way that's I can't even tell you how much work. I'm getting lost in it, but literally the services are there. If you don't know where to go, you can call the warm line, you can call the food line that I just mentioned, you can call our constituent services line, and we will help you navigate the system so that you can get the resources that you need. So there's no need for anyone to go hungry. There's no need for people to not have the supports that they need in order to be healthy and safe.
Okay, so and let me just say that for people who stay up at night worrying about these issues, that it does my heart good to know that Kay also is up at night worrying about these issues. And in fact, I would not have hired you. Well, maybe I would have, but one of the things that made me hire Kay was something that when I was stalking her on Facebook, this was before, well, it's part of the interview process, of course. Something that you wrote that was clearly from the heart. And that was essential to me. I mean, you can have somebody who knows how to operate government, but in the work that we're doing, if it's not in your heart and it doesn't keep you up at night, then you're probably not going to deliver that extra. I'm only as good as the people around me. These two people are, we joke about the bosses. They're not. They're the team leaders, there are a lot of great people that are at every level of government, and maybe on some of these town hall things, I'll drag some others in and do some hazing with them, and because I think it really is useful to hear where you all are coming from, now you know who to call with your complaints. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. We're doing these every 2 weeks now. Thanks everybody.
Thanks for having us, Stuart. We appreciate it.